I am a poor wayfaring stranger, while traveling through this world of woe. Yet there's no sickness, toil, or danger in that bright world to which I go. I know dark clouds will gather round me. I know my way is rough and steep, but golden fields lie out before me, where God's redeemed shall ever sleep.
Well, welcome to Tea Time Theology.
Good to be here.
My name is Taylor Wilkie. With us today is our regular co-host, Ivy Swinsky.
Hello.
And our guest for this episode, Reverend Jarrett Kerbel.
Great to be here.
What a journey this season has been. And now we are at episode 8, season 1, episode 8. This is to full disclosure, first time through. Didn't like this episode.
Wrong opinion.
All right. You two have it out. This is great.
I didn't like the fantasy. I don't like fantasy in my sci-fi, and this was very fantasy.
Hot take.
Yeah.
I'm completely different. This is everything I love about storytelling. I will always go for like a fairy tale retelling, and this was a really good one of that.
Yeah, I'll go Episcopal guy right down the middle here because like I have some of your feelings and some of your feelings. Something about the costume episode hit me from the early Trek, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to like this. And then I slowly got sold on it as the episode went on.
Yeah, the costumes were great.
The costumes are amazing. I have no idea how anyone kept a straight face. I was watching it and I was like, how is nobody laughing right now? I want to know how many outtakes there were for this episode.
Right.
I feel like they could have just done like a 6-hour blooper reel just on trying to get this episode up.
Like Anson Mount is having a great time.
Everyone is
Absolutely.
living their best. I think that is also why I enjoyed it, because watching it, you could tell that they were all having the time of their lives.
Oh, yeah, he was chewing the scenery, as they say in theater. He was loving every second of it. And I think I was able to take the costume part because the emotions were real. There's a core of pure emotion around the core story between the doctor and his daughter. And that carried me through.
Well, that's sort of to your point, is usually they throw this type of episode in and it's bad.
Right.
But like this was a well-written episode that like happened to use this plot device.
Right.
I wrote in my notes, Ortega is still the best, because it doesn't matter what you put her in, she will always be the best.
Ortega is probably one of the best characters on this show.
I love her. I just love her intensity. She just had she was all in this episode, in that role, and just, she was fire. I love her.
Oh my God. So good.
The soundtrack was great too. I really enjoyed how they really leaned into. There is literally music throughout this whole episode, and it's all very well done. I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
I thought the sets were a little cheesy. I mean, the turning the ship into a fantasy land, it worked for the costumes. It didn't quite work for the ship. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Ivy growing up a starship wall wasn't working for me.
That's right. I didn't like how they did the forest, so I'll agree with you there. Like the stuff that was in like the walkways.
The hallways. Yeah.
But I did like what they did with the like med bay.
Sick bay.
Yeah.
Sick bay, sorry. But like I liked that area. I thought that was really interesting.
The big reveal when they went onto the bridge was just so fun. You know, the doors open and they're all like in costume.
Right.
Yes. It was a great reveal and just a big chuckle right there.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, Pike was, oh my gosh, he was funny that whole episode.
Yeah. There's a if you guys ever wanted to know, spoilers for next season, I might be committing too hard to this, but next season we're going to try to do a D&D style campaign, and emphasis on try. If it doesn't work out, it'll be probably another pop culture season, so don't get excited.
It might be a standalone episode.
Don't get too excited, tens of listeners. But like this, like if you haven't played D&D, this episode is D&D. It's very like there is a scene where the idea of like I think like they need to like do something like Umbenga, someone floats the idea like maybe if like we hurt you, like maybe you're causing this, and if you are in pain it'll stop, and someone says I can shoot them with an arrow, and right away, no hesitation, Una says that, and I'm like, that's how D&D works. It's all just a bunch of people being absolutely bonkers, and be all like, yeah, I'll stab you right now, let's go, no problem.
I was worried with back to Ortega that she might actually stab somebody, and then what would happen?
Right.
Yeah, what would happen if someone actually got sliced up
Well,
in Fantasyland?
I don't feel like it would have been real, because I feel like the stakes were real in an emotional sense, but I was never like actually worried for the safety of any of these characters, because if you think about it, you're really just live watching someone's like imagination or like doll's story time, right? So like I was never worried that anything was actually going to happen to these characters in the way that like I definitely am in some of these other episodes where like the stakes feel actually life and death. This felt emotional life and death, but it didn't feel like, oh, someone's actually going to die here.
Oh, sorry, I'm really throaty today. Absolutely, but also, you know, Umbenga was there and he knew what was going on. He's the chief medical officer. And we see the fact that we also see that like all the stuff on the ship still works. Like he's scanning people with his tricorder. So like you could have ran and just grab a dermal regenerator from Sick Bay.
Why wasn't he fully affected by the scene? Was it the explosion that he set off, or?
I think it was something to do because I mean at the end of the episode we find out this is all happening because of his daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that he was King Ridley because she was the Mercury Stone.
And she
and
saw her dad that way.
And I also think that there was something at the end where doesn't she tell him he like seems sad, where like she was sad and that's pretty much why this happened, because they wanted her to have fun. And if you think about it, like I think part of her having fun was doing this with her dad.
Oh, nice. Well done. Yeah,
was like
I see that.
having the two of them get to experience this together.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So I think the theological aspect of this episode is really all kind of takes place in the last like 10 minutes. There's a very, I mean, like I said, the first time I watched this episode, I wasn't really into it, so I wasn't really paying attention. But this time, I had to take notes, so I was paying attention. And in like the idea of that, the idea that, what's her name, Rukaya, was in the pattern buffer, was being held in stasis in the pattern buffer, which means that essentially her physical being was non-existent, and for the purposes of this episode, I would like to say her soul was being held in stasis inside of the ship's computer.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's like this matter to energy thing, which, you know, the transporters are such a part of this series from the get-go. And it does raise some interesting questions about what a person is. You know, where's the soul? And obviously there must have been some consciousness in the buffer, because the entity is responding to something. It feels her loneliness. It feels her sadness. She's having some kind of experience in the buffer. And what it made me think of was purgatory. She was kind of in this purgatorial space of not fully alive, not fully dead, just hanging out there. And I guess she was lonely and suffering in that space. And I think empathy plays a huge role in this episode, and which is very sweet. And I got teary, actually, to tell you the truth, near the end.
Oh, I definitely cried at this end. And I don't really know why. It definitely just hit really emotionally hard.
Well, they gave you that moment where, he has to they make this big choice for her to essentially go into this eternal space. That's a saying goodbye. It's big. I mean, they mitigate it by her coming back like seconds later.
Right.
But still, it's like, I mean, if I thought about that with my own daughter, it was rough. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that begs the question. I mean, like, Jerry, you've been a clergy for a while. I'm sure you have, because like that scene, that choice that Obenga has to make. He has to choose whether to keep his daughter with him in the pattern buffer, knowing that essentially, because earlier in the episode, we're finding out that Rukiah has like she essentially has like hours to live. Like every time Obenga takes her out of the pattern buffer now, she is exponentially closer to dying.
Yeah.
And he has to make the choice: do I let my daughter do I let this representation of my daughter go to be in essentially a better place, or do I keep her here with me?
Yeah.
I guess the question is, have you ever been in a pastoral care situation where someone was on life support and there wasn't going to be any chance of recovery, and you have people who are asking, like, what do we do? How does one this is really heavy, so have fun answering this question.
We've taken a dark turn here.
Oh yeah. Like, how does one guide a person or a family through that kind of choice?
That's a great question. I really appreciate that question. It's very resonant with what's happening in this episode. And I've walked people through that so many times. And the key is there's a trade-off between my love and attachment for the person and what's best for the person. And it's tricky because when we love someone, we want what's best for them. And whenever we're really attached to somebody, we really want to avoid the pain of saying goodbye. And one of my experiences with death is it's not so much the dying as the physical act of dying as the loss of relationship that is so painful to people, right? So someone who's dying, it's like, they wanted to see their grandkids grow up. They wanted to make it to that wedding. They wanted to, see their great-grandchildren, right? It's very much tied into their social relationships and their loves and saying goodbye to that. And same on the other side for the people accompanying the person through death. And that is the pastoral work, is saying, hey, and luckily for us, like in this episode, we can say this is not forever. Because there's that totally sweet moment, right? When it's like, they'll see each other again. I mean, they change the ending. I mean, that's the very, to me, theological point of this episode, is that the ending is not written in stone. And death is not the only ending. And super powerful stuff. And I've always wondered personally what atheists do next to the deathbeds of atheists. What do you say? I'll remember you. That's nice. I mean, that's a nice thing to do, to remember somebody. But how many generations does that last?
Right.
And then you're out of the pattern buffer.
Right. They say you die. They say you die twice. You die. Your physical form dies, and then the second time you die is the last time your name is ever spoken.
Yeah.
That's dark.
That feels pretty.
It's a very dark episode.
We're getting dark here.
That's dark.
But that's a good reminder that she was so sick. I mean, really, this is a hospice episode. I mean, his choices weren't good, and he did a bold thing as a dad to let go for her good. That was beautiful. And of course, he's got the wonderful immediate reassurance that she was still there, which reminds me of the communion of saints. Right? We have this idea of the communion of saints, that the souls persist in our lives, and I think whether they knew it or not, they seem to be riffing on that.
I did like they did hang. I timed it. It's like 30 seconds. They hung on Mbenga, in the room alone.
That's a long time in TV.
That is a long
30
TV,
seconds.
yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
and you really and like the actor who plays him, Benga, I don't know his name, but he is such a great actor.
Yeah.
He has like in season 2, there's a whole episode of him being like on the front lines of the Klingon War.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And he's just being an absolutely kick-ass like field surgeon and just like being like, you know, it's like MASH in space. But he did a great job. They really hung on and showed us the loss that he was feeling.
Yeah. It's powerful.
And I think what also is really beautiful about that episode is when Una comes to him afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I think it sort of shows this idea that like grief happens in community where like even if they don't know what happened, they know something happened for him and sort of just like being there for him. I was really happy that's how they ended the episode because they could have ended it with her coming back, them hugging, and like that could have been the end. But I'm glad that they like took it that one step further to show him with like his Starfleet family as well, and how like they continually show up for each other as well.
Yeah, that network of care. Yeah, it feels to me like this series is doing a lot more in terms of the community of the crew, which is what I hear you saying is, you know, this whole thing with Pike feeding his crew and like gathering. It's a little, if I think about the original episode, it felt like a smaller inner group, and we didn't get as much of them like in spaces where they were one big community.
Yeah. That really started with, I think, Deep Space Nine was where they started really making it a community. But I think that's a sign of the times that we're in. Anson Mount is playing the leader that I think we need, the captain we need.
I love that.
And that's what's great about Star Trek, is that Star Trek is of the time that it was made.
Nice.
And I really like that Anson Mount is being the leader who like checks in.
Yeah.
Who's
He's compassionate and empathetic and kind.
He's a compassionate, empathetic, connecting leader, nurturing leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the hyper masculine.
Right.
He's wise, I think, is one of his attributes. Very careful in his decision making, and boy, that sounds like a dream come true right now.
Yeah, he leans over like at the beginning, and this is just something that's really great. It's like we like at the beginning of the episode, he's just like, you know, we're hanging out in front of this doing scans of a nebula, and he like goes over to Spock and he says, like, you know, I could really get used to this. No phasers, no torpedoes, no Klingons, no Romulans, no fighting. It's just we're working on the science. We're doing the job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Spock gets that great moment where he says, like, "Sir, don't you think you're jinxing this?"
It was great, yeah.
Love of my life.
Because he says it with, like, deadpan, like, he doesn't believe in jinxing.
Yeah.
But, like, I believe you are jinxing it, sir. And Anson Mount gets to look at him and say, like, I didn't realize you were superstitious, Spock.
It was a great exchange. But I also I think, you know, while you said that, I'm like, would anybody watch Star Trek if it was just the science?
I mean, there's probably people who would.
Yes.
I would not.
Without the romance, without the battle scenes and the action, and
I say that I do not. Sorry, like the first episode of season 2 of Strange New Worlds is a giant space battle scene. It's a space battle episode, and I'm like, okay, that was great. I thought it was mid, but I got really excited about the second episode of season 2, because the second episode of season 2 is a courtroom episode where they're debating the values of the Federation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm here for. I think the best episodes are where someone is taking an introspective look at what the Federation means, like Measure of a Man in Next Generation, where they're talking about, is Data a person?
yeah. I agree.
There's also in The Pale Moonlight, Deep Space Nine, where Cisco is fighting with the guilt of faking the Romulans into the Dominion War. And at the end of that episode, he's like talking about all the terrible stuff he did and how he tricked them all. And he says to the computer, I can live with it. I can live with what I've done because it's for the greater good. Yeah. And then he says computer delete log, and that's the end of the episode.
Oh, wow.
And it's chef's kiss. If you haven't watched In the Pale Moonlight and Deep Space Nine, watch In the Pale Moonlight.
Okay.
But I also think what's interesting is like science doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
And I think people have this idea, it's like, oh, it's creative or oh, it's science. And it doesn't. There is, and we see it in this episode and in other episodes we've seen where like science can be beautiful and have community, and you need that human aspect in science for it to happen, really.
Totally. And I think the science is one stage of the thing, but there's also what I hear you saying is the philosophical part of it, the humane part of it. It's from the original episode, it's always been a humanistic show about reflecting on the big questions. I mean, I'm trying to think of that original series episode which is essentially one of Plato's dialogues. Someone trips over a line, they didn't know it was a law, and they broke the law, they now have this punishment. There's this whole debate about is it an infraction if you didn't know it? And yeah, I think this platform called Star Trek has been great at keeping philosophical reflection in the discourse. Better than most shows, really. Why we have to go to space to do that, I don't know.
It's safe.
It's safe. Space is safe.
It's a safe space. Space is a safe space.
Well, and I think
I see what you did there. Very cute.
but I think it even takes it a step further because, like, you're in also this fairy tale world in space.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if the nebula had just happened and they hadn't done all these extreme circumstances, if he would have made the same choice of letting his daughter go, if it was more of like one of those like Gorn episodes or something like that. Like, would the same choices have been made? Because I think there is something about being in this like warm, safe fantasy world that makes you more comfortable to make harder choices.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I think we need to talk about how Hammer is essentially being used as a prophet for whatever's in the nebula.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you feel about that symbolism of like Hammer opening himself up to being a vessel to be spoken through for the nebula entity?
Oh yeah.
And how did that resonate with? How did that reflect, I guess, is a better word, of like how the prophets interact with God in the Bible?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. First of all, I love the Hammer character. It's just something great about that character. And I'm going to push it back a step, though, because the nebula itself is part of this answer. The nebula is such an interesting construction of the fiction, right? So they have, I think Spock has this evolutionary theory about how consciousness can arise just out of nothing in space. He had a theory, I can't remember the title for it. And it's this fascinating moment when a humanistic TV show needs to conjure something like God. They have a scientific way God appears. And that's great. And it serves its purpose in the episode, although theologically, it's not really the way we look at God. So, however, but to your question, it's beautiful. I mean, once again, it's the empathy, it's the connection, it's the openness to what's going on. In this whole episode, there's this terrible worry of conflict and loss and out of control situation. Must be completely bewildering to the two people who know that this is not real. And into that, the answer turns out to be a sympathetic connection, not a harsh alien domination, not a harsh alien intrusion, but a alien force that's looking for empathy and connection, right? Because what drew that nebula in was her loneliness. And there's, at the heart of this is kindness and love. And yeah, that's what prophets speak God into the troubled world, right? I mean, the biblical prophets were more calling people to justice, God's righteousness. So it's a little different than that, but still it is a beautiful idea of, I would say less like a prophet and more like a contemplative or a mystic, channeling God's love in a pure way into the world that needs it.
What did you think about the fact that the only way for her to be saved was for her to stay? Because I thought that was really interesting, because it wasn't that the nebula could just heal her and then we could go on with our lives.
Right.
It was that the nebula could heal her, but there needed to be sacrifice on both ends. Because, like, in her world, like, she was pretty much leaving her dad for a vast majority of her life. Like, they were being separated. And that, like, sacrifice within the saving.
I think it's crucial. Otherwise, you get cheap grace. And they brilliantly avoided that.
Choices have consequences.
Choices have consequences. And in a sense, she does die.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fully.
I mean, going to the nebula is an analogy for going to heaven, in a sense. And there is a loss there. There's a separation. There's a cost, and there's a hurt. And they didn't dodge it, which is beautiful, right? It wasn't just poof, she's well, yeah, everybody's happy, And I really honor them for not pulling the punch on that and leaving us with the legitimate pain that's really real. It adds to the real. We're in space. We're in a starship. We have a nebula. But there's realism.
Jared, Star Trek's
emotional
real.
realism.
Jared, Star Trek is real. Like,
oh, sorry.
Like I am. It's all happening.
It's all happening as we speak. Another timeline.
Right.
Another timeline. I'd like to be on that timeline.
So I guess while you guys are talking about that, I guess the question is, in our society currently, especially with folks of my generation is we consider ourselves as a whole spiritual, but we are not religious. And I have friends who are just straight up atheists and agnostics, and it's sometimes it's hard. It's hard to open ourselves up to the divine. And I wonder, this isn't a planned question, this is just something that popped in my head. How would you, like, if someone came into the church and asked, listen, I'm not all in yet. I'm having a hard time opening myself up to feeling the grace, like Hammer had to. Hammer had to locked out whatever was going on. That's why he was the only one who was able to be unaffected, other than Mbenga. And how would you coach someone to open themselves up to feel the warmth and the grace that being a religious person that comes with being a religious person?
Wow, that's a great question. That is a really great question.
I feel like you just asked the question that churches have been asking for thousands of years. Good luck.
And we're going to have an answer right.
And you're going to have the answer right now.
You're going to have the answer right now.
Can I call a friend?
No phone a friend. This is a millionaire.
Call the Pope. Hey, Francis, help me out.
He's in the hospital. You can't be reached right now.
Well, I mean, I've been working on that my whole life as a priest. That's almost everybody who enters a church now is in that position where they are, I'm not sure what I'm doing. And the best, answer is from St. Paul, I believe, help my unbelief. I believe, help my unbelief. And that's a prayer he's offering to God. And we're all who are honest will admit there's somewhere between belief and disbelief. Because that's just the human condition. And our job is to nurture people into the spiritual journey where they can slowly trust and open up. These are not easy things, because life hurts us and teaches us to close up for good adaptive reasons. I mean, if like me, you were bullied or treated badly in one way or another, you go deep inside. And then I always ask people, how many people in your life do you really trust? It's usually a very small number because trust is precious and our souls are shy and our souls are precious. And the church has done so many bad things across time. Why would somebody open up here? I mean, so many people who come through our doors have just, they're talking about the sexual abuse scandals, the oppression of LGBTQIA people, all kinds of things that have given them a justified suspicion of the church. So we just have to be really honest. Yeah, it's okay to be suspicious. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to demand the church be better. And we need to do that relationally by building trust over time, where this people who've kind of gone down God's river and trusted God with their lives share what they've experienced in the gentlest of possible ways. I think of like recovery meetings are a good example for me, right? People who show up at recovery meetings are just in a bad place. Their lives have kind of not gone the right way. They're suffering, but they're also incredibly suspicious of the process. Like they don't naturally say, "Oh yeah, 12 steps make sense to me." But surrounded by other vulnerable people who tell their stories and that they can see themselves in, they can, not always, get pulled in to a really saving narrative, a saving path. And if churches were more vulnerable, open places where people share why they need this, why they're here, what God does for them, we'd be in a different place.
I have so many thoughts.
Oh, I bet. Go for it.
No, well, I was just thinking, this is going to be a kind of roundabout story, but I'm going to just tell it. But this week I had a meeting and I stole one of my mom's jackets, and she's a clergy person. And I put the jacket on after the meeting, and I reach into the pocket, and she has mini Jesuses in the pocket. This is my
Baby
mother.
Jesuses?
No, they're like an inch high, and they have a deacon's stole on rather than the regular stole, because she's a deacon. And like the person I was with is someone that I've worked with a lot. It was just the two of us in this meeting. They were having kind of a rough time, so I kind of just looked at her and I was like, "Do you want a mini Jesus?" No idea what her religious faith was or anything, and she was like, "Absolutely." She was like, "That is the best thing that has happened to me all day." And like, I think sometimes we overcomplicate God, because I think that we have conflated what God can give people with what religion can give people, and they are different things. And to like a certain extent, because there is some part where like, I don't think people being spiritual needs to be a bad thing. I think that, like you said, there is spirituality in like recovery groups. There's spirituality in like hiking groups. And I think people want to believe in something bigger than them, and just sort of giving them those tools. Because sometimes I think people overthink it. It's like, okay, we get it. You have a budget to clear. You want to do this and that. That's fine. But like sometimes the small things of being like, "Do you want a mini Jesus?" is like really what people actually need in the moment.
Oh, I absolutely love the mini Jesus story. That's brilliant. And I'm having the thought, really a question. You had an ongoing relationship with that person, someone who you knew, they knew you. What role do you think that played?
But I don't know, because I keep my, like, it was a work meeting, and I keep my, like, church self very separate from like this. Like, even we run a book group together, and one of the things the Icebreakers is like talking about what media we're watching, and I was saying like, oh, like I've started watching Star Trek. Did not give the context that the only reason I started watching Star Trek is because I run a religious podcast. But like, so I was just like, yeah,
it's a weird thing to say out loud to people who aren't into it.
Yeah, no, it's like a weird, and we've had that conversation before. And it is definitely something that I've like sort of kept separate in a lot of ways, not in any sort of like, I'm embarrassed of like my Episcopal church or anything, but I also think that like there is a lot of trauma in religion, and a lot of people do carry that. So I always sort of live my life with this like leading with the grace of God rather than like the name of it.
Beautiful.
If that makes sense.
No, it's beautiful. I love that.
So like I think the relationship did help. That like
That's great.
it was good, but
Well, and you're giving me a circle back to Trek too, because one of the common threads is trauma.
Yeah.
Oh my, M'Banga, the trauma from that battle at the beginning of the series. I mean, I can't think of a character who doesn't have some sort of trauma.
I think I wrote that as my note. I was like, is there a trauma test to get on Starfleet?
Yeah.
You need a backstory of trauma. Check. Well, if you don't have it, you're going to get it.
For this show.
For this show, yes. Everyone needs
A trauma narrative.
yeah.
But I think that's important because a lot of stuff we've been doing recently is noticing that in the Bible, in the New Testament, the context is trauma. I mean, Israel is a traumatized people under Roman occupation. And that context helps us understand better what's going on in those stories where, people are, it's life and death. These are people who are intensely in need of a secure connection of love and healing. It also explains why there's so much illness, so much, pain circulating around. It's because trauma. This is a traumatized population. And it looks a lot like traumatized populations you might meet in Guatemala or El Salvador or Nicaragua. Name it. Sudan, South
Really,
Sudan.
anywhere.
Yeah.
People can be traumatized anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I was taking more like governmental kind of trauma from oppressive regimes, which we may be heading into. Oops, did I go too far?
No.
Okay.
No one listens.
That's a lie.
Did I offend our 10 listeners?
Great. We lost a listener, Jarrett. Thank you. God.
We're gonna get some. We're gonna get some feedback.
No, we don't. We don't get feedback.
Aww.
That's one of the things that we don't get.
No comment section?
No, we barely get comments.
I get a lot of comments.
Let me see how far I can push this.
Do we?
No, not really.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I don't know. We look forward to your letters. Send in a letter. Yeah. If you don't like something I say, send it to me. TaylorWilkie@gmail.com.
Wow, asking for it.
Whatever, It's nice. It would be nice to engage. And that's the thing that I think right now we're missing in this project that we're in. It's like I see that we have listeners and I feel like no one's engaging. And either that means everyone agrees with everything we're saying, which is awesome. But, it'd be nice to know that we're not screaming into a void.
Fair enough. And the promise of social media was supposed to be this idea that we'd be in dialogue. And that's also been the massive failure of social media is the quality of the dialogue. I was really proud for a while of hosting a very good convening of different points of view on one of my sites. And that felt really good, but it took some work to kind of like help people bring their best to the discussion. And it definitely helped. Anonymity always wars against that. So I don't want to get us all into social media things, sorry, but.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I don't know. So, like we mentioned earlier, unlike in real life, Rukaya, leaves and then comes back as an adult. Which is cool because that means that she kind of this is some kind of time and space aspect to what's going on with her. She can leave and she says I have lived a whole life since the last time you saw me. And M'Banga's you just left. She's yeah, but it's been decades for me. And that's something that we don't get in real life. We don't get to be by the bedside of someone who died. And quick tangent on that. One of the things that I'm a little concerned about death in America is that for some reason everyone seems to be dying in hospitals and no one gets to die at home anymore. And I'm not sure what that's about or how that's just become normalized, but I think maybe it's just because in an emergency you go to the hospital and then you die, but I don't know. I feel like something is lost by not dying in a familiar place. But anyway.
I don't know. I've watched people die at home, and it can be just as tragic.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a little dark. But, like, no, I think that it's more about the quality of care. And you can just get a better quality of care not in your home. And I think it also depends, not to, like, talk about the hospice space, but I think that, like, I am not a thing on that. But I do think there is different ways to die. And I think that I don't know if us in our medical genius of prolonging life is always the, like, best option either.
Fair.
And, like, the suffering of that. And I think that's something that is talked about in this episode of, like, have we become so afraid of death that we end up hurting the people we love because of it?
Right. Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, the last 20, 30 years, we now have the problem of very long life. You know, hundreds of years ago, we had the problem of very short life. Now we have the problem of very long life, and we haven't really adapted to those questions very well. And in this episode, I mean, it's kind of wonderful because this little girl, you know, in her struggle, had fantasy. She had this lovely fantasy life, which is great. That's just perfect for children. That's where we all, I hope, all went as children, was into fantasy when we needed it, right? But even better, she now has this fullness of life we could hardly understand, right? I mean, across time and dimensions, right? I mean, she's doing full general relativity here. you know? It's great. She's out there across time and space, and in a way, it's such a beautiful ending because she also looks like her mother.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's beautiful. She's radiant in that moment, and that big smile on her face, and the way they do it is so lovely.
And they named the nebula after the dead mom, Deborah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was like one of the 2 notes I took. But I just thought that was also so powerful, is that, like, he has already lived through the grief of the death of his wife, and that he couldn't do the daughter too. And I wonder, like, if that choice that she named the nebula after her mom also made him sort of be like, she's going to be with mom. Like, she's going to be okay.
It seems to symbolize a sort of healing of a primary grief. There's a grief behind the grief here, which is the loss of the mother, right? And there's also an interesting connection with, like, an early 20th century idea of religion as this oceanic bonding with, you know, that we somehow remember from the womb. You know, there's this kind of wombishness which connects to the Hebrew word hesed, loving kindness, which means wombishness. You know, God's love towards us is womb-like, which is amazing and nurturing and feminine. So they also gave the God character a feminine name in this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I have nothing else.
I feel like we've covered it. It was a beautiful episode, and I was grateful to watch it. It was teary and emotional and real and good.
It was,
even though it was fantasy.
Love a fantasy episode.
I guess the last thing I have to say is that, like, the fact that Umbenga gets that, I think I also timed it, and he gets an extra 30 seconds with his daughter. He gets to watch his daughter essentially die.
Yeah.
She leaves.
Yeah.
And she comes back and she says, she gets 30 seconds to say, "Hey, Dad, everything's okay."
Oh, it's amazing.
And I mean, like what I would give to have an extra 30 seconds with, like, my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Just
wow.
just to know, like that 30 seconds is very, I think, powerful. And the idea is that, you know, if someone were to come back, you hope that it's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, how many of us have, like, yearned as we say our prayers or at bedtime, oh, I wish I could say one more thing. There's that one more thing I needed to say. And one thing I actually counsel people to do as they're dying is say everything you need to say to the people you love, if you can, before you die. Write it down, record it, you know, get it out there, you know.
But I think
and vice versa. Yeah.
I know you're trying to end this episode, but I think what's interesting about what
No,
you
I'm
just
not.
said is that it's what we want to say.
Yeah.
But I think what would be more interesting is he listened in those 30 seconds. It
that's
wasn't
right. Oh, very
about
good.
what he wanted to say. It was that he got to hear that she was okay. And I think that is, everyone's like, oh, I wish I could say I love you one more time. But I think really what people want is they want to hear it one more time.
Oh, fabulous. Well said. Yeah, that's beautiful. I know.
Yeah, and that's the whole point is that he made a choice, and they could have left it there. They could have ended that episode
There's so many places they could have ended
right
this
there
episode.
when she like disappears, and like just 30 seconds of silence of him just being like, "This is it," and then done. But
Yeah.
they gave Mbenga that moment. They gave
Yeah.
Mbenga that moment to know, Dad, you made the right choice.
Yeah,
And
that's
they did two things. They gave him the moment to know he made the right choice, and then they gave him the moment to share his grief with someone else. And I think both of those things had to happen. Like, both of those things are what made the episode satisfying.
Oh man, that's because ambiguity is torturous,
Yeah.
right? I mean, leaving Mbenga hanging there, like, did I make the right choice? I mean, he would have been suffering over that his whole life, but he got this grace, and grace it is, of her coming back and affirming the choice. And I mean, there was closure, which is a word I don't love, but it's something we rarely get in life.
Does anybody else have any final thoughts?
I think closure is a great way to close.
All right. Well, this has been a great episode of Tea Time Theology. Jarrett, if let's say somebody wanted to come meet you on a Sunday,
In this space-time continuum.
in this space-time continuum, or reach out to you on the electronic internet, how would one do that?
In this timeline, you can come on Sunday mornings at 8 or 10 at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in East Greenwich on the corner of Pierce and Church Street for a lovely community of worship here. It's just really a group of wonderful, faithful people, and they welcome and they include and they're lovely. And we can also watch us on YouTube for the 10 o'clock service if you want to do that. We have a YouTube channel. And you can catch us on Instagram or me personally on Blue Sky. We'll have our discussion about social media some other time.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home. I'm going there to see my Savior, to sing His praise forevermore. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home.
Thank you for listening to Tea Time Theology, a ministry of St. John's Cathedral in Rhode Island. We would like to thank our producers, Ivy Swinsky and Taylor Wilkie. Special thanks to Mariah Akande and David Hines for this season's music. Additionally, we would like to thank our sponsor, the Episcopal Diocese of Rhode Island, and the Right Reverend Nicholas Knisley, as well as our guests today. Follow us at Tea Time Theology on all social medias.